The U.S. Youth National Team U-17s had a few standout players during the CONCACAF U-17 Championship, and one of them was Brazilian-American talent and midfielder Pedro Soma. And today, we have an exclusive interview with Pedrinho Soma himself. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to another exclusive player interview. Today, we're going to be interviewing Pedro Soma, that plays for Cornellà in Spain, and for the U.S. Men's National Team U-17 side. We're going to learn much more about his youth days, his current days, his club, national team, and personal life, and much more. All right, so smash the like button if you'd like to. I will not be asking during the video if you enjoy these types of interviews. Thank you very much. Let's play the intro and let's start the interview. All right, everyone, welcome to another player interview. This is one of my favorite interviews here. I've had another Brazilian American here in the past, which for me, it's always fun as a Brazilian American myself. And today we have Pedro Soma, or Pedrinho Soma, that plays for Cornellà at Spain and was part of the U.S. Youth National Team U-17s that just qualified to the U-17 World Cup about a month ago from this recording. Pedro, or Pedrinho, welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't we get everyone to know a bit more about you, right? Every time we have youth players here at the channel, we don't have much information about you out there and all the players that were even in the national team. So why don't you tell us a bit about your story? You were born in the U.S., your Brazilian ties, and then we'll go on from that.
Yeah. My dad was born in California. My mom was born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And I was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Like, for people who don't know, maybe an hour from Miami. And so I grew up playing soccer, first place as a toddler. I played at my Brazilian church. And then from there, I started playing on clubs until eventually I went on a student exchange program in Spain. My parents wanted me to experience a different culture, a different environment, different country, different language. And we ended up choosing Barcelona, Spain. And since then, it's been a journey, right? And I got scouted by Cornellà, the club I'm currently on. And I'm also on the U-17 USA national team.
So funny that you said Rio de Janeiro. That's where I grew up, by the way.
Yeah.
So have you been to Rio?
Yeah, maybe 6-7 times, maybe.
Okay, that's enough, especially because right now you're 16, so you've been there quite a bit.
Yeah, quite a bit, yeah. My family's very close to each other.
Yeah, let me ask you one thing then. Your mom is from Rio. What's her club? What's her team there?
Flamengo.
I kind of figured. It's like every. So if you ask 4 people what their team is in Rio, 3 of them will be Flamengo fans, and then one you'll find a Vasco, Fluminense, Botafogo. Mostly Vasco. Yeah. I'm a Palmeiras fan, by the way, so I'm sorry about that. We've been beating you guys a few times here and there. But yeah, Rio's a beautiful place too. I'm sure you still head there from time to time. I hope to go there this year as well. One question for you about that. Growing up in Florida, when did you, I don't know how much you can go into details with this, but you said you played with a lot of Brazilians down in Fort Lauderdale, and I know Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and Boca Raton, they all have a lot of Brazilians, by the way. So where exactly did you play in the U.S.? Was it any club, or was it mostly just pickup?
No, yeah, I started with rec soccer. I was born, like you said, I said Fort Lauderdale because it's bigger, but I was born in Boca Raton. And the first club team I played for was Boca United, which it was a DA team back then. Now it's in MLS Next. It's called South Florida Football Academy. And yeah, I played there and another club called Boca Juniors.
Almost sounds like the Argentine team.
Yeah.
And then when did you, that exchange program, when did you head to Spain, and how did Cornellà scout you? Was there a tournament there? Was it just, how did that happen?
The student exchange program was when I was 12, 2018. And after my student exchange program, I played, just having fun playing soccer. And after 2 years, then they scouted me and we decided to make the move.
Okay. And you've been there since then. So you've been there for a few seasons.
Yeah.
I know because Adrian Gill mentioned you when we had him here at the channel, that he plays for La Masia, and you guys face each other. We're going to talk about that in a second here. I want to go to Cornellà here. Now, I want to talk about that because You're currently in Barcelona, and Barcelona has developed some legendary players. We don't have to even go through all the names. A lot from the La Masia Academy, and Cornellà is seen as a feeder club, right? A club like you. How did you call it again in Spain?
Like a trampoline club. You jump off this
Trampoline
club
club.
to
That
get
they.
to the next. Yeah,
Yeah, because the professional side of Cornellà plays in the third division of Spain. Is that correct?
third division of Spain. Yes.
And are you playing at the professional side right now or at the youth setup?
No. Yeah, the youth side.
Youth side. So you're playing against clubs like La Masia, which is Barcelona,
Yeah,
Espanyol.
Barcelona, Espanyol, Girona, and for me, for example, me, Adrian, Gil, and Diego Cochin, we all play in the same league with each other. We always play against each other, and it's pretty fun to play against your friends.
Can you explain a little bit to us about how the structure works there? For example, you're playing, what is it? Is it just a regional tournament? And what's the path to becoming a professional there specifically? If you want to move to a bigger club, because we talked about how a player like Jordi Alba, right? Everyone knows the left back from Barcelona. He came out of your club, and there's many other names that we're not going to go through here. What is the path to become a professional there?
From my view, my path, it would be either getting to the first team of Cornellà, making the debut as early as I can, and then from there you either make a jump to a bigger club, or the other option, make a jump right now to a bigger club and then go through their path to get to the first team. Right. I mean,
Mhm.
the important thing is getting to the first team as fast as possible.
So you played a little bit here in the U.S. and you mentioned a club here that was in the DA and now at MLS Next. So what have you noticed in terms of level of play where you are now in the United States? I know you were very young, so it's kind of hard. The
Yeah.
question I'm asking you is a little bit complicated to, I guess, quantify or even explain. But in terms of competitiveness, what do you notice differences from Spain to the United States? Because I don't think anyone's crazy enough to question that soccer development in Spain is better than the United States at the moment. There's no one that should be crazy enough to question that. Is the development better? Is it just more competitive? There's more teams. Tell us your perspective of this based on your experience.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, skill wise, talent wise, Spain is better. But I would say more of the mental side is what makes it a lot different. For example, when I was a kid, we still had a mercy rule. Like we couldn't head the ball because you would
Mhm.
have a concussion, stuff like that. Those little tiny details is what makes these Spanish players so much more tougher, so much more ready mentally, right? And these little things is just what makes the big gap between one side of the Atlantic Ocean and the other side,
Mhm. Or the South too. Brazil is
or
the
the
same
South
thing.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
South America is
Now,
also the same thing.
but expand on that a little bit for me in regards to Spain. Would you say so? We have obviously expanded the academies here in the United States quite a bit
Yeah.
the past 10 to 15 years, or even 20 if you go further. Would you say the amount of competitive teams there is far higher? Because we're talking about like Cornella, right? They're in the third division of Spain. That would be the equivalent of what USL League Two or League One in the United States, right? It's MLS, USL Championship, USL League One. I don't know about you, but I can't imagine USL League One developing a player that will play for Barcelona. I just can't see that at the moment for the United States. So why do you think that these lower level teams in Spain, and actually if we go to Brazil, England, and many other countries, right, that have good development there in Europe and South America, you have lower table teams developing players for these top dogs, right, in the world. Why do you think that happens? There's just the amount of players, better coaching. What have you
Yeah.
noticed?
Well, yeah. First of all, the amount of players that play the sport here compared to the amount of people that play the sport there is absolutely crazy. Like here,
Mhm,
if you're a boy and you don't play soccer, it's like, what are you doing with your life? Um,
mhm,
every kid just loves the sport here. It's like in Spanish blood, in German blood, it's European blood to play the sport while you're a kid, and that just makes it that there's so many teams. And for example, in the Catalunya where I live in, there's different divisions of leagues, and there's one league of 16. Then there's uh, one another league of 16. Third league has four groups of 16 teams, and then there's the fourth league that has 16 groups of 16 teams, and then the last division has I think 64 groups of 16 teams.
In all
Like,
competitive, all very
and that's
competitive.
all competitive. There's relegation in every single league, and that's just for U19, U18, U17. And then you do that all again for U16, U15 because they're together. And then you do the same thing for U14, U13 because they're together. And then you just keep going down. Imagine how many teams that is.
And that is just Catalunya that you said.
That's just Catalonia. And there's 17 autonomic communities in Spain.
Yeah, I don't know how much you follow Brazilian soccer. I'm sure you follow it to a certain degree, but it's kind of similar at the state level in Brazil. You probably heard of the estaduais where Flamengo plays in
Yeah.
Rio, and then there's so many little divisions in so many clubs. They have so many people playing, and it's so competitive because everyone's fighting for a spot, right? Um, in the United States, I guess because of the amount of players that you don't have as many, if you have talent, the odds of you making it to a team is very high. While in places like that, you need talent and a lot of hard work because there's someone right behind you trying to get your spot right away. Tell me a little bit about this. So, in the United States youth national team, you played mostly as a central defensive midfielder, right? Distributing the ball. You played as a six, more of like a deep line playmaker. You were responsible on the build out and defensively. For Cornelia, what do you play mostly? Because I talked to Simon Gill and he played different positions for Barcelona, then he played in the national team. Is it the same case for you?
Yeah, for Cornea, I play different positions. With the national team, I usually play the six, which is what I did the whole time we were at CONCACAF. I've played the eight in some friendlies earlier. But yeah, in Cornea, I basically only play the eight, and I barely ever play the six. But I love both positions, and yeah, I mean, I just love being defensive and attacking at the same time.
Is there any position of those two, the six or the eight, that you're more comfortable with on the field, or it really doesn't matter to you?
No, it doesn't matter to me. I love both of them.
Yeah. I guess for the US, looking into the long term, I don't know how much you follow our senior team. We kind of need a six, a backup six, right? We have Tyler Adams right now. And then after Tyler, we have been placing Kellen Acosta, but we haven't really figured it out. Kellen Acosta hasn't really, convinced anyone. And I guess looking at the long term, that is a position that we're needing, the six and the left back as a backup and possibly to challenge a player to be the starter. Let me ask you one thing too about youth setup. You're obviously eligible to play for the US. You already did, and you are provisionally cap tied to the US, but you're also eligible to playing for Brazil. We know that the step for playing to the US is one step. For Brazil, it's like 10 steps. The competition is insane going to Brazil, but I can't help but ask you, does that go through your mind at all?
The thing about playing for Brazil doesn't go through my mind right now. I'm
Mhm.
100% focused on U.S. soccer. And if that happens, then we'll deal with it at that moment. But until then, my heart is with the USA.
And you also grew up here your entire life, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So just to wrap things up here before we end, what is, if someone had to ask you right now, long-term, short-term plans with Cornelia and the U.S. youth national team right now? So Cornelia, you kind of touched upon it. Right now, you're playing at their youth team. Can you just talk very quickly which youth team you're at and how close are you from maybe possibly going to the professional team? And what's the long-term outlook here for you for right now? Your plans?
Yeah. For Cornea right now, I play on the U18s and sometimes with the U19s. And if the goal is to just finish the season well, keep proving myself, maybe playing good enough to get a debut this season by the end of the season, and then when the season ends, then we'll focus on next season, see where I'm going, and we'll see how everything is.
Any chance, and again, you tell me if you're allowed to even talk about it, any chance you would consider, let's say you're playing well for Cornelia, but an offer doesn't come up maybe to play professionally there, or it does, but it's not the right one that you want. Is there any chance if an MLS club reaches out, right? You'd come back to the United States in a professional level, reaches out, hey, we have a deal for you here. We want you to play for our senior team. Is that something you would even consider at the moment, or your focus is to stay in Europe?
I mean, my focus is Europe. I'd love to stay in Europe, but in 3 months, by the end of June, you never know what can happen. Something can change. Something about my life can change. So all options are open.
Are open. Okay. I think that's all I wanted to talk about here, Pedro. Hopefully, people know a bit more about you, your story. Obviously, we can't go into details and too much stuff, but we're also wishing you the best of luck. You have a World Cup coming up
Yes.
at November. Is that right?
November, yes.
Then you have a couple camps. We wish you the best of luck during the World Cup. We'll be following along and covering here at the channel. Thank you very much, Pedro.
Yeah, thank you.